All right, Ms. Carroll, plants to avoid in their replacements. Where do you want to start with that?
Gosh, I want to say, where do you want to start? Because as an agent, we get the calls over and over and over about the same plants, don't we? So,
Well, let me toss this to you. You know about the Bradford pears, right?
well, how many times do we hear that about Bradfords, and how many times have we been talking about replacing it? But finally, we're getting to the point, I think, that we're seeing fewer and fewer as they go out. And people
So
are
finally we're getting there, right?
I think so.
Good. Okay.
So Bradfords are one, of course, we need to talk about replacing, not only the fact that they're brittle and break, but that they reseed like mad and become a real problem in the landscape. But let's kind of just lump that in with some other spring blooming trees that we continue to see problems with. I love our native dogwood, but it's really picky and difficult to grow. I've killed them.
You've killed them?
Oh yeah, and every time I ask an audience, how many of you have killed dogwoods? You know, you'll get a big show of hands. Everybody's like, oh. So I'm not telling people, you know, not to try, because of course it's such a wonderful tree and one of the Tennessee's best, actually our biggest production tree. And we've done a lot of research on that. But and also I'm going to throw the ornamental cherries in there, because they're spring blooming trees, and we know when we get a call about a cherry.
We already know what it is.
And we know it's going to be canker or borer, and that, you know, we're really lucky to get a few years of pleasure out of them.
Yes.
So if people want a more durable tree, let's talk about some spring blooming trees that would be more durable. Number one, the dogwood hybrids, if you really want the look of our native dogwood, they have crossed them with kousa dogwood. And kousa is a later blooming, and it's a great dogwood if people want to grow an easier dogwood. The Cornus kousa will bloom actually about when the oak leaf hydrangeas start to bloom, with the leaves fully on it. So it's a different time, but it's a good tree, easier to grow, has edible fruit. But they've hybridized that with our native dogwood to increase some disease resistance. So you look for the stellar series and find the ones that have the kousa blood in there, and that makes them a little bit easier bet.
Okay.
So that would be one. Then the other would be fringe trees.
Yes.
Love the fringe trees. And we have both our Native American fringe tree, sometimes called Grantsey graybeard, or we have the Chinese fringe tree. And I actually prefer the Chinese. Sorry. But it's a little showier, the flower's a little whiter and brighter, and it stands up above the foliage, whereas the native one is a creamy white and kind of drips down in this bearded shape. And it's a beautiful tree. If you got room, get both. But if I could only have one, I'm going with Chinese just because it's showier, and the foliage to me is a little more interesting. We actually collect both at the station.
Let me ask you about this.
Yeah.
Emerald ash borer. Is that going to be a problem?
I hope not, but you're good to ask that, because the emerald ash borer is also known to attack fringe trees, because they are in the same family.
Right, same family.
They are in the same family as the ash. You can protect it if you decide to, but we also find that emerald ash borer prefers larger trunk trees.
Okay.
So I don't know, maybe it kills all the ash. It may take aim. My big hope is it'll take aim at privet, because privet's also in the same family.
Right.
So we can only hope.
That's
but
right.
Again, it likes larger plants, but that may be the end of privet. Maybe we can hope for that anyway.
Okay.
Also, some of the magnolias, the deciduous magnolias, and if you want the white flower, then I would look at Wada's Memory. Wada's Memory has got a beautiful pyramidal shape that would remind you of the Bradford, but it won't break up. It's very durable to grow in almost any situation. It's won all kinds of awards for its durability. Then let's talk about shrubs. What do we get calls a lot about? The Japanese hollies.
Japanese hollies, of course.
And the boxwoods.
And the boxwood, yeah.
So those are, you know, your tight evergreen shrubs that a lot of people like to use for foundation plantings or for formal accents in the garden. And usually they're going to suffer from root issues. Poorly sited or overwatered, where if there's any kind of drainage issue, then it's going to succumb. And I think the Japanese hollies are even worse than the boxwoods.
You think so?
I do. I wouldn't put Helleri holly looks great in a pot, and almost never again. I don't like, now boxwoods I think have a certain place, so I would probably still use a boxwood if I really sited it properly with perfect drainage. They like a little bit of protection from the hot sun, because they'll burn and bronze up. They like a little bit of protection from the
I don't think people realize that
winds.
though. They do actually need some protection from the hot sun.
Yeah, they do.
Know that.
If you're gonna plant a boxwood in the sun, then you need to go with Korean box or Japanese little leaf box. But the formal English box that a lot of people around here call American box or common common box, really would like some shade. It would really like some shade and protection from cold winter wind. But perfect drainage. So now if I want a tight, roundy-moundy plant, you know where we're going with this. Well, so why not use the Dwarf Yew Pine? It's a tough little dude. It gives you the same look. It's just so cheerful about performing in a wide range of soils. So that's where I'm going with it. I'm not saying let's try to save this. You yank that out
Just get
and
it
go
out
back
of
in
there.
with the Dwarf Yew Pine. And there are more than one cultivar. There's Bordeaux and Nana and several different ones that are out there.
And you know what else with the boxwood? The blight. You know, now there's something new coming down the pipe.
Right.
You know,
We've got new diseases all the time.
how about that?
And that would remind us, mix it up is the main issue. We should never put all our eggs in one basket,
Okay,
but
good.
sometimes we are looking for that. A lot of times we'll hear my hydrangea didn't bloom.
Yes,
My hydrangea didn't bloom. So the good news is that there are breeding now for these reblooming or remontant types. So I would go with those newer types that will rebloom for you. Endless Summer was the first to come out, but now Mike Durr has used that in his breeding programs. Penny Mac. There's lots of good ones out there that are rebloomers. The one called Dooley, found in Coach Dooley's yard,
Coach
Vince
Dooley,
Dooley's yard, is a very good one, reblooming type. As long as they're well sited with good drainage, you should get good performance out of those remonted or reblooming types.
Okay.
Well, another one that I hate to see used, and people love it because of that brilliant deep purple foliage, the purple leaf plums.
Oh.
Yep.
It's a pretty color though.
It is a pretty one.
And it stands out. You know,
It
in the
does.
landscape.
It does. They're a plum.
Yeah.
It's going to get the borer.
Yeah,
The
has
original
the borer.
plant's probably going to die short order. But don't worry, we've got hundreds of them left because they sucker like mad and come up from the roots, not just in your yard. They can come all the way over from root suckers in your neighbor's yard. And I've taken many a picture of little purple plumettes coming up through people's turf grass. So suckers like crazy. If you quit mowing it, it'll become an entire forest of purple leaf plum. I've been around old homes where you can't see the house for the purple leaf plum thicket. So I would recommend instead you go with the burgundy loropetalums.
Oh yeah, I like those.
Yeah, they're really good, and some of them get quite large, like the plum wood, and you could limit up and turn it into a tree form instead of a large shrub. And there are breeding now for ones that stay deep purple throughout the summer months, so that would be a good one. All right, and of course lelands. So we want people to mix it up and use instead the green giant arborvitaes and some junipers because the lelands are going to succumb probably to Ceridium canker sooner or later.
Which is a question that we get a lot as extension agents.
Right,
So mix it up a little bit.
Yes.
You'll be fine.
That's right.
Thank you for the information. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. To find out more information on this topic, just click on the familyplotgarden.com link in the description.